My name is Madison Carter. I am 28 years old. And the night I quietly walked out of the apartment I shared with my boyfriend was the night I finally learned that silence can be louder than screaming. There was no dramatic breakup, no shattered glass, no hallway argument, no crying in the rain like some tragic scene from a movie. Just one sentence. I need you to stop coming around for a while. Vanessa is staying over. And I don't want drama. That was what Ethan said, casually. Like he was asking me to pick up oat milk on the way home. Like asking your girlfriend to disappear from her own apartment so your ex-girlfriend could sleep. There was a normal inconvenience between two mature adults. I said okay. Then I walked out, and I never came back. 6 weeks later, Ethan called me from a number I did not recognize. His voice was light at first, almost careful, like he was trying to step back into a room he had locked himself out of. "Hey," he said. "Do you want to grab dinner sometime?" As if nothing had happened, as if our relationship had simply been paused, as if he had not looked me in the eye and chosen his ex-girlfriend's comfort over my dignity. I said 3 words. Neither did I. Then I hung up. That was 3 months ago. He still tries to call sometimes, but the ending will never make sense unless I take you back to the beginning. Because in the beginning, Ethan and I looked normal. Better than normal. Actually, we looked like the kind of couple people trusted. The kind people invited together. The kind that made other people say, "You two just fit." We met through mutual friends at a rooftop party in July 2022. It was one of those hot summer nights when the whole city felt alive. Music thumped from a speaker near the bar. People laughed too loudly. The skyline glowed orange as the sun slipped behind the buildings. And every window seemed to catch fire for a few seconds. Ethan was standing near the railing with a drink in his hand, talking to someone I knew from work. He had this easy smile, the kind that made him look like he had never been nervous in his life. When he laughed, his shoulders relaxed, and his whole face opened. I remember thinking he seemed safe. That was the first mistake. We talked for 3 hours that night. He was a freelance graphic designer, working from home most days, building his client base and dreaming about opening a small studio someday. I worked in project management for a tech startup. Normal jobs, normal lives, normale ambition. We exchanged numbers before I left. 4 days later, we had our first date at an Italian place downtown. He ordered carbonara. I ordered bolognese. We split tiramisu even though he insisted he was full, then kept stealing bites from my spoon. After dinner, we walked along the waterfront, the air warm and heavy, streetlights trembling on the water. He kissed me first. By September, we were spending every weekend together. By December, we were talking about moving in. By the following March, we signed a lease on a 1-bedroom apartment in the city, $1,400 a month. We split it evenly at first. Rent, groceries, utilities, streaming services, all of it divided down the middle. It felt adult, stable, real. The apartment was small, but it was ours. Exposed brick in the living room. A kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in. Windows overlooking a busy street where delivery trucks rattled by in the morning and drunk people sang after midnight. Ethan set up his design station in the corner of the bedroom. I worked from the kitchen table most days. We built routines without even noticing. Coffee together in the mornings, dinner most nights, weekend farmers market runs, movie nights on the couch. For the first year, loving Ethan felt easy. Not effortless exactly, but natural, like walking down a familiar street. Like coming home and knowing where to put your keys, but there was always Vanessa. Ethan and Vanessa had dated for 4 years before me. High school sweethearts who stayed together through college and into their early 20s. He told me about her on our third date. It ended badly, he said, turning his wine glass slowly between his fingers. Toxic patterns. Codependency. We brought out the worst in each other. He said he had needed space to grow. So he ended it. That was 2 years before we met. He said they stayed in touch casually. No hard feelings. Just two people who had grown apart and moved on. I respected that. I have never believed someone should have to erase their entire past to prove they love you. People have history. People have old friendships. Old mistakes. Old chapters. But Vanessa's name came up more than I expected. A text here, a call there. A little mention dropped into conversation, like a pebble into water. Vanessa asked about that restaurant we went to. Vanessa said she might be in town next month. Vanessa sent me this design account. You'd like it. Small things. Nothing dramatic. Nothing I could point to without sounding insecure. Just enough to keep her present. The first real red flag came in early fall. Maybe September or October. Ethan mentioned Vanessa was going through a rough time. She had lost her job after some tech layoff. She was struggling with rent. Stressed about money. Not sleeping well. She called me last night, he said while rinsing his coffee mug. She was overwhelmed. She doesn't really have anyone else. I felt Belfort. Layoffs were brutal. I knew that. That's rough. I said, yeah. Ethan replied. I told her I'd help if I could. Help how? He shrugged. Too casually. I don't know yet. Maybe lend her some money. Just to get through the month. I paused. How much? I don't know. 200. Maybe 3. That's generous. I said carefully. She'd do the same for me. The way he said it stayed with me. Not warm. Not nostalgic. Obligated. Like there was some invisible debt between them I could not see. 2 weeks later, he transferred Vanessa $500. He even showed me the Venmo receipt. As though transparency made the knot in my stomach unreasonable. She needs it for rent, he said. She promised she'll pay me back by the end of the month. The end of the month came and went. No repayment. I did not mention it. Neither did he. By November, Vanessa was texting him almost every day. I would see her name light up his phone while we were eating dinner. Watching TV. Brushing our teeth? He would smile before answering sometimes. Amza. He laughed under his breath while typing back. And when I asked what was funny, he locked his phone. Nothing, he said quickly. Just a stupid meme Vanessa sent. Can I see? You wouldn't get it. It's an inside joke. Inside joke. That phrase stayed with me longer than it should have. Inside jokes meant shared history. A private language. Little emotional rooms where I was not invited. I had inside jokes with Ethan too. But Vanessa had them first. And hers were starting to make him smile. In a way, mine did not. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself jealousy was ugly. I told myself a mature woman trusted her boyfriend unless he gave her a real reason not to. Then one night, Vanessa called at 11. We were already in bed. Half asleep. The room dark, except for the thin blue glow from the street outside. Ethan's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He grabbed it, saw the name, and sat up. I should take this. Now, she's probably having a hard time. I'll be quick. He walked into the living room and closed the door. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to his muffled voice through the wall. He laughed twice. The call lasted 23 minutes. When he came back, I asked if everything was okay. "Yeah," he said, sliding under the covers. She just needed to vent about work stuff. At 11 at night, she's a night owl. As if that explained everything. I did not sleep well that night. By mid-November, I started noticing more. The way Ethan lit up when Vanessa's name appeared, the way he checked his phone during our conversations, the way his attention seemed divided, like part of him was always sitting in another room with her. One Saturday, we were grocery shopping. He was picking through apples when his phone buzzed. He pulled it out. "Read the message," and smiled. "Vanessa?" I asked. He looked up, startled. "Yeah. She just sent me a photo of a dog she saw." "Cool." He put the phone away. But the smile stayed. I wanted to ask him the question that had been burning behind my teeth for weeks. "Are you still in love with her?" But I did not ask. Because some part of me already knew that asking would not make the truth less painful. So I watched, I waited. And I hoped I was wrong. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday in late November. It was one of those cold, gray evenings when darkness settled over the city before most people had even finished work. The streets below our apartment glistened from an earlier drizzle, and headlights stretched across the wet pavement like smeared paint. I came home around 7. Ethan was standing in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for stir-fry. At first glance, everything looked normal. His hair was messy from being home all day. He wore an oversized sweatshirt and no shoes. Music played softly from a speaker near the sink. The picture of domestic comfort, the picture of a man preparing dinner for the woman he loved. I had no idea that within 30 minutes, our relationship would effectively be over. "Hey," I said, setting my bag by the door. "Hey, how was your day?" "Good." He didn't look up. "Actually, there's something I need to talk to you about." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. I poured myself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. "What's up?" He scraped chopped onions into a bowl. "Vanessa is coming into town this weekend." The knot in my stomach tightened. "Okay. She needs a place to stay for a few days." I already knew where this was going. "She can get a hotel." He sighed. "She can't really afford one right now." I waited. I told her she could stay here. The room suddenly felt colder. Here, just temporarily. In our apartment, yes. I stared at him. The knife continued moving against the cutting board. Slice, slice, slice. As if he were discussing the weather. "Where exactly is she staying?" "The couch?" For a moment I felt relief. Not because I liked the idea, but because at least there appeared to be some boundary. Then Ethan paused. Although I knew I wasn't going to like whatever came next. "Although what?" "She's been having back problems. The couch might be uncomfortable." I blinked. "What are you saying?" "Maybe I'll let her have the bed." The silence that followed felt enormous. "You'll what?" "I can sleep on the couch." He finally looked at me. "I don't want her to be uncomfortable." I genuinely wondered whether I had misunderstood him. "Your ex-girlfriend is coming to stay in our apartment?" "Yes." "And you're considering giving her our bed?" "It's not like that." The phrase came instantly. Too instantly. Like he'd already rehearsed this conversation in his head. "Then, explain what it is like." "She's struggling." "Madison. And she needs help. So help her find a hotel." "She doesn't have money." "So help her find a friend." "She doesn't have many people." Every answer felt like another brick being laid between us. "What about me?" His expression changed. Slightly. Barely. But enough. Enough for me to realize I wasn't the person he was worried about. Why are you making this a competition? There it was. The shift, the subtle accusation, the implication that my discomfort was selfish. I'm not making it a competition. Then why are you acting like helping someone automatically means I care about you less? I laughed once, not because anything was funny, because I suddenly felt exhausted. Ethan, she's your ex. She's also my friend. You talk every day. So, you send her money. She needed help. She calls at midnight. She's struggling. Every answer came back to Vanessa. Every road led to Vanessa. Every justification protected Vanessa. I was beginning to understand something terrifying. The relationship Ethan described as being over had never truly ended. Its shape had changed. Its title had changed. But emotionally, pieces of it were still alive. And I was the only person pretending otherwise. The conversation should have ended there. Instead, it got worse. Much worse. Because Ethan wasn't finished. He set the knife down, crossed his arms, and delivered the sentence that would destroy everything. I knew you'd react like this. My eyes narrowed. What does that mean? You always get weird when Vanessa comes up. I almost laughed again. Always. Yeah, Ethan. I have spent 2 years being patient about Vanessa. You tolerate her. She's your ex. You don't trust me. No, I said quietly. I don't trust this situation. His jaw tightened. The defensive look returned. Then he said something that changed how I saw him forever. I already told her, yes. The room went silent. You what? She's coming Friday. You agreed before discussing it with me. I knew you'd say no. I stared at him, not because I was shocked anymore, but because, suddenly, everything made sense. The secrecy, the rehearsed answers, the confidence. This wasn't a discussion. It never had been. He had already chosen. My opinion was just an obstacle to manage afterward. So what happens if I'm uncomfortable with this? He hesitated, only for a second. Then came the sentence. The sentence I still hear sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep. Well, that's actually something else I wanted to discuss. A chill ran through me. What? He looked away. Vanessa is going through a lot right now. I waited. Seeing you here might make things harder. I felt my pulse slow, dangerously slow. The kind of calm that arrives when someone hurts you so deeply that your emotions temporarily stop functioning. What are you saying? He rubbed the back of his neck. She knows I've moved on. Good. But being around us together could upset her. I stared. He kept talking. I don't want drama. The world narrowed. Just his voice. Just those words. I don't want drama. Then he said it. The sentence. The one that ended us. I need you to stop coming around for a while. Silence. I honestly thought I had heard him incorrectly. What? Just until she settles in. What? A week, maybe. I felt numb. A week. Maybe 2. I couldn't believe this was real. You want me to leave? Temporarily. You want me to leave my apartment. Just until things calm down. You want me to leave, so your ex-girlfriend can stay here. She needs support. You want me to disappear, because seeing me will upset her. His silence answered for him. I looked at the man I had loved for 2 years. The man I'd planned a future with. The man I'd shared holidays, birthdays, rent payments, grocery lists, movie nights, and dreams with. And suddenly I didn't recognize him. The most painful part wasn't the request. It was his certainty. He genuinely believed this was reasonable. He genuinely believed I would agree. That realization hurt more than anything. Madison. I looked at him. You understand. Right. There was relief in his eyes already. Relief. As if he expected gratitude. As if he expected cooperation. As if my role in this story was simply to wait until he decided I could come back. Something inside me became very still, very calm. Okay. His shoulders dropped instantly. The relief flooded across his face. Really? Yeah. Thank you. I nodded. I'm going to pack some things. Good. Good. The word echoed in my head. Good. Not are you okay? Not this must be hard. Not I'm sorry. Just good. I walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, pulled out a duffel bag. Then I started packing. Not for a week. Not for 2 weeks. Forever. Clothes. Laptop. Chargers. Toiletries. My watch. The novel on my nightstand. The framed photograph of my parents. A small jewelry box my grandmother had given me years earlier. Piece by piece. Memory by memory. I removed myself from our life. And the entire time, Ethan never once came into the room. Never once asked what I was thinking. Never once wondered why I was packing so much. Because in his mind, the ending had already been written. Madison leaves. Vanessa arrive. Madison waits. Madison returns. Everything goes back to normal. The only problem, I was writing a different ending. When I walked back into the kitchen, my bag hung from my shoulder. Ethan was plating dinner. 2 plates, not 3. That detail would haunt me later. I'll call you in a few days, he said casually. Okay. Once Vanessa gets settled, we can figure out when you come back. Sure. He smiled. Actually smiled. Then turned back toward the stove. That was the last time I ever saw him as my boyfriend. I walked out the door, took the elevator down 14 floors, stepped into the freezing November air, loaded my bag into my car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, the apartment building grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. I never returned. The first thing I felt the next morning wasn't heartbreak. It was clarity. Pure. Shocking clarity. For weeks, maybe months, I had been trying to convince myself that Ethan's relationship with Vanessa was harmless. I had explained away every uncomfortable feeling, every late-night phone call, every hidden smile, every excuse. But once I was out of that apartment, everything looked different. Distance has a way of exposing truths that love tries to hide. I woke up on my older sister Rachel's couch just after 7 in the morning. Sunlight filtered through the blinds. For a few seconds, I forgot where I was. Then everything came rushing back. The conversation, the apartment, the look of relief on Ethan's face when I agreed to leave. Oddly enough, that was the memory that hurt the most. Not the request itself, the relief. Because it proved he never considered how much it might hurt me. Only how much easier it made things for him. Rachel was already in the kitchen making coffee when I walked out. She took one look at my face and slid a mug toward me. You sleep at all? A little. Want to talk about it. I wrapped both hands around the cup. For a moment, I considered lying, saying I wasn't ready, but the words came anyway. By the time I finished telling her everything, Rachel's expression had shifted from concern to disbelief. He asked you to leave? Yes. For his ex? Yes. She blinked, then blinked again. Madison. That's insane. Apparently not to him. No, she said firmly. It's insane. Hearing someone else say, it felt strangely comforting. Not because I needed validation, but because Ethan had spent so much time making me question my own reactions that I'd started wondering whether I was the unreasonable one. Rachel shook her head. What are you going to do? I looked down at my coffee. Move on. She studied me carefully. You mean that? Yes. You were together for 2 years. I know. People don't usually walk away that fast. I met her eyes. People don't usually ask their girlfriends to disappear so their ex can move in. Rachel couldn't argue with that. Around 9 o'clock, I called the landlord. The lease was in both Ethan's and my names, technically. I couldn't simply vanish, but I also wasn't going back. The landlord listened quietly. While I explained that I needed to remove myself from the agreement, he told me he'd need Ethan's signature on the paperwork. Send it anyway. I said, "Are you sure?" "Yes. Very sure." Next came the joint account. There wasn't much money in it. $1,500 set aside for rent, groceries, and household expenses. I withdrew exactly half, $750. Not a penny more. Then I removed my access. No fight. No revenge. Just separation. By noon, I was changing passwords, streaming services, shared subscriptions, shopping accounts, cloud storage, every tiny digital thread connecting our lives. Kut. The process felt strangely peaceful, like cleaning out a closet that had been cluttered for too long. That afternoon, I went to the gym. I stayed nearly 2 hours, ran until my lungs burned, lifted until my arms trembled. By the time I left, sweat-soaked and exhausted, something heavy inside me felt lighter. Not healed, just lighter. That evening, Rachel sat beside me on the couch. "Have you heard from him?" "No." Nothing. She frowned. "That's weird." At first, I thought so too, but as the hours passed, a different possibility emerged. Maybe Ethan wasn't worried. Maybe he genuinely believed I was coming back. Maybe, in his mind, I was simply giving him exactly what he'd asked for. Space. The thought made me laugh. A short, humorless laugh. Because he had no idea what I'd actually done. The weekend came and went. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Vanessa arrived. I knew because one of our mutual friends posted a photo online from a downtown cafe. Vanessa appeared in the background. Ethan sat across from her, both smiling, neither looking particularly stressed. I closed the app and kept moving forward. The following week, something unexpected happened. I started sleeping better. For months, I'd carried a constant tension in my chest, a low-grade anxiety I couldn't fully explain. Now it was gone. No wondering who Ethan was texting. No wondering whether Vanessa had called again. No wondering whether I was imagining things. The uncertainty had disappeared. Painful truth was still truth. And truth was easier to live with than confusion. 3 weeks passed. Thanksgiving arrived. I spent it with Rachel, her husband, and their 2 children. The house was loud, warm, comfortable, exactly the opposite of the apartment I'd left behind. For the first time in months, I felt normal. Then Tuesday arrived. Rachel walked into the living room, holding her phone. Her expression immediately told me who it was. "Ethan." She nodded. "He texted." I closed my laptop. "What does he want?" "He's asking if you're okay." I laughed. "Now," he says, "you've blocked him." "Correct." "He wants to know how to contact you." I thought for a second, then shrugged. "Tell him I'm fine." That's it. She typed the message. Less than a minute later, her phone buzzed again. Rachel read the screen, then looked at me. "He wants to talk." "About?" "He says it's important." "It isn't." She smiled slightly. "That's what I thought." 2 days later, my friend Jordan called. Guess who I ran into? Ethan. Yep. I leaned back in my chair. "How's he doing?" Honestly. Confused. That surprised me. Confused. Very confused. I almost laughed again. "How?" Jordan hesitated. "He thinks you're taking some kind of extended break." For several seconds, I simply stared at the wall, Seriously. Seriously. The absurdity of it nearly took my breath away. After everything that happened, after asking me to leave, after replacing me with Vanessa, he still believed there was a relationship waiting for him when he decided he was ready. Jordan continued. He asked if I'd heard from you. What did you say? That you're doing great? Good. He didn't like that answer. That's unfortunate. Jordan chuckled. Madison. Yeah, you're really done. Aren't you? I looked around Rachel's living room. The photographs on the wall, the Christmas decorations beginning to appear, the peace. Then I thought about Ethan, about that kitchen, about the way he'd smiled when I agreed to leave. And for the first time, there wasn't even anger, just certainty. Yes, I said quietly. I'm done. A week later, Jessica called. Unlike Jordan, she sounded nervous. I talked to Ethan. Okay. He's a mess. I remained silent. He misses you. Still silent. Madison. Yes. Do you think maybe you could talk to him? No. Just once. No. Jessica Sahil. He says he didn't realize what he was asking. I laughed. This time, genuinely, he absolutely realized what he was asking. He says he thought you understood it was temporary. He asked me to leave my home so his ex-girlfriend could stay there. I know. There is no version of that sentence that becomes acceptable because it's temporary. Jessica had no response. Because there wasn't one, January arrived. Then, one evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I ignored those calls. For some reason, I answered. Hello. Silence. Then, Madison. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't race. Nothing happened. And that told me everything. Because, once upon a time, hearing Ethan's voice would have changed my entire day. Now, it changed nothing. It's me, he said quietly. I know. I borrowed a friend's phone. Of course he had. Because every number he actually owned was blocked? Why? The question escaped him immediately. Desperate, confused, almost childlike. Why? What? Why did you disappear? I closed my eyes and suddenly understood something. He truly didn't know. Not because the answer was complicated, because he'd never bothered to see the situation from my perspective. Only his own. Ethan. I said softly. Yes, you really don't know. The silence that followed lasted several seconds. Then he answered, no. And in that moment, I realized the hardest conversation of our relationship was finally about to begin. No. The word hung between us. Not defensive, not angry, just genuinely confused. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else. I stood by the window of Rachel's guest room, looking out at the dark street below while Ethan waited for me to answer. For months, he had been chasing an explanation. For months, he had convinced himself there had to be some misunderstanding. Now he finally had me on the phone, and he still couldn't see it. You really don't know? I asked again. No. I let out a slow breath. Okay. Okay. You asked me to leave our apartment? His voice tightened, temporarily. No. You asked me to leave. It wasn't forever. That doesn't matter. It does matter. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. No. Ethan. It doesn't. Silence. Then, I was helping someone. You were prioritizing someone. That isn't the same thing. It is when that someone is your ex-girlfriend. His breathing became audible, frustrated, restless. Vanessa was struggling. And I wasn't. That isn't what I meant. Then tell me what you meant. More silence, because there was no answer, or at least not one that made him look good. Finally, he spoke. She needed support. And I needed respect. Nothing, just breathing. Then, I never thought you'd leave. There it was. The truth, not an apology, not accountability. The truth, he never thought I would leave. Never imagined it. Never considered it. Because somewhere along the way, Ethan had started believing my love was unconditional, permanent, guaranteed. No matter what he did, no matter who he chose, no matter how badly he treated me. You thought wrong? Madison, no. For the first time during the conversation, I interrupted him. You don't get to act surprised. I wasn't choosing her over you. You literally asked me to leave so she could stay. She needed help. You keep saying that because it's true. And you keep ignoring the point. The frustration in my voice finally surfaced. Months of disappointment condensed into a few simple words. You chose her comfort over my dignity. The silence afterward lasted so long I thought the call had disconnected. Then his voice returned, smaller this time. Vanessa left. I blinked. What? She left. I didn't respond. She stayed 5 days. 5 days. 5 days. The relationship I'd invested 2 years in had been sacrificed for 5 days. Ethan continued. We got into a fight. Okay. She said I was being controlling. I almost laughed. The irony was unbelievable. She moved out. Yeah. Where? With another guy. That surprised me. Not because it mattered, but because it revealed how little Vanessa had valued the enormous sacrifice Ethan had made for her. She'd apparently been seeing him for a while. I leaned against the wall. So let me get this straight. What? You asked your girlfriend to leave her own apartment? It wasn't, just listen. He went quiet. You damaged our relationship to protect your ex-girlfriend's feelings. Yes. You let her move in? Yes. She left 5 days later. Yes. She moved in with another man. A Pause. Yes. I closed my eyes. The entire situation felt absurd. Like a cautionary tale. Like a story people would refuse to believe, because nobody could possibly be that blind. Yet here we were. Madison. He said softly. What? I made a mistake. The words finally arrived. 6 weeks late, but they arrived. I know. I wasn't thinking. I know. I thought I was doing the right thing. I know. Another pause. Then, can we fix this? The question didn't hurt, didn't tempt me, didn't make me nostalgic. It simply confirmed how differently we viewed what had happened. To Ethan, the relationship had been damaged. To me, it had ended. A long time ago. No. His breath caught. Just like that. I stared out the window. A car rolled slowly through the neighborhood. Someone across the street was hanging Christmas lights. Life kept moving. Even when relationships didn't. Yes. Madison. We had 2 years together. I know. You can't throw that away. I laughed quietly. Not cruelly. Just sadly. Ethan. I didn't throw it away. What does that mean? You did. The silence that followed was devastating, because I think, for the first time, he understood. Not fully, not completely, but enough. Enough to realize that what he'd viewed as a temporary inconvenience had been a permanent betrayal. His voice cracked slightly. I miss you. I looked at the dark reflection in the window. A stronger version of myself stared back. I know. We were good together. We were. Then why? Because being good together isn't enough. He stopped talking. I continued. Trust matters. Yes. Respect matters. Yes. Feeling safe matters. His breathing slowed. You stopped making me feel safe. Madison. No. I shook my head. You made your choice. I didn't mean to. But you did. The truth was brutally simple. Intentions didn't erase actions. Love didn't erase disrespect. And apologies didn't automatically rebuild destroyed trust. Finally, he whispered, "So that's it." I thought about the apartment, the coffee mornings, the farmers markets, the movie nights, the plans, the dreams. Then I thought about that kitchen, that one conversation, that one smile of relief when I'd agreed to leave. And I knew, yes. I hung up. This time, he didn't call back. For a while, the attempts continued through friends, through messages, through emails, but eventually, even Ethan understood there was nothing left to save. By February, I moved into my own studio apartment downtown. Small, simple, $700 a month. 10 minutes from work. A space that belonged entirely to me. I furnished it slowly. A couch from IKEA. A second-hand desk. Plants along the windowsill. Framed prints on the wall. No compromises. No negotiations. Just peace. The peace I'd been missing for months. I started running every morning. 5 miles. 6 days a week. I lost 15 pounds. Read more books. Took weekend trips. Reconnected with friends. And somewhere along the way, I found myself again. Then, in March, I met Liam. It happened in a coffee shop near my apartment. He was reading one of my favorite novels. We started talking, exchanged numbers, had dinner 3 days later. A Thai restaurant that stayed open far too late. We talked for 3 hours. Then another date. Then another. Liam was a pediatric nurse. Kind. Steady. Emotionally available. The kind of man who made life feel easier instead of harder. No games. No confusion. No ex-girlfriend constantly standing in the background of our relationship. Just honesty. Just effort. Just peace. One evening, while eating pasta on my couch, Liam finally asked about my previous relationship. What happened? I smiled, then told him the truth. My boyfriend asked me to leave our apartment so his ex-girlfriend could stay there. Liam lowered his fork. What? I laughed. Exactly. And you left? Permanently. He stared at me, then slowly nodded. Good. Good. You respected yourself. For a moment, emotion caught in my throat, because that was exactly it. Not revenge, not anger, self-respect. Months later, I saw Ethan one final time. Whole Foods. Produce section. Avocados. Of all places. He looked older somehow. More tired. Le certain. Hey? He said quietly. Hey. I heard you're seeing someone. I am. He nodded. Looked down. Then back up. I think about you every day. I said nothing. I wish I could take it back. I know. I'm sorry. I know. His eyes reddened. Is there any chance we could talk sometime? No. The answer came easily, naturally, without hesitation, because I wasn't protecting myself anymore. I simply wasn't interested. I miss you, he whispered. I picked up 3 avocados and placed them in my basket. Then I looked at him one last time. You miss the version of me that accepted being second. His face fell. I continued. That woman doesn't exist anymore. And with that, I walked away. I didn't look back. That night, Liam asked how I felt. I smiled. Exactly where I want to be. And it was true. Some people think love means enduring anything, forgiving everything, waiting forever. But real love doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't humiliate you. It doesn't make you compete with someone who was supposed to be in the past. Ethan made his choice the night he asked me to leave. He chose Vanessa. He assumed I would wait. Assumed I would understand. Assumed I would return when he was ready. He was wrong. I chose my dignity, my peace, my future, and that decision changed everything.